Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. It's time for the Kickstarter, a discussion that is going to dive into the aspects of accountability in sports administration in the country. We shall be looking at the latest move by the Ministry of Finance to occasion the change of administrators at the National Council for Sports. Let me first give a preamble before we can know who our guests are, who will be helping us with perspective, information, as well as knowledge on what's going on in the running of the sports sector in the country. The Ministry of Finance declared Bernard Patrick Ogwell, the General Secretary of the National Council of Sports, unfit to continue as the Council's accounting officer. In a letter dated July 25th, addressed to the NCS chairperson and copied to the Minister for Sports and Education, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Ramadan Gobi, requested the chairperson to recommend a candidate for the role in the financial year 2024-2025, saying that Ogwell is ineligible to hold the position after being implicated by the Auditor General for failing to account for public funds and assets in the previous year. We also do understand that a meeting was held in response to Mr. Gobi's request, and the chairperson of the council, Ambrose Tachobia, wrote back asking the Ministry of Finance to furnish the council with more information. He is quoted as having stated that after receiving Gobi's letter, he convened the meeting, which resulted in 4 resolutions. Among these was a request to formally draw the attention of the Minister of Education and Sports to the matter for further guidance, give the importance of the government projects currently being undertaken and executed by the National Council for Sports, and the meeting also resolved that the General Secretary of the Council be reinstated as the accounting officer for the financial year 2024-2025. That flew in the face of the request by the Permanent Secretary to the Council. There's a whole lot of stuff that is happening at the National Council for Sports, and the goings on that we see and the tug of war with the Ministry of Finance and indeed any other stakeholders in the country is something that we must interrogate so that we can understand what is at the heart of all the controversy, of all the tension. Joining us to help us understand these matters are eminent persons. On my extreme left, I have Ivan Ojakol. He's a lawyer who has taken it to himself and indeed many of his colleagues to understand the world of sports. Is it okay to describe you as a sports lawyer?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for making it this morning. You're most welcome to the program. We also have Mr. Philip Munabi. He's also, well, a sports lawyer, no doubt. And on my immediate left, I have Ivan Magomu. He's also a lawyer and a rugby player. Gentlemen, people must know you're the captain of the national rugby team. That is impressive stuff. I must take this opportunity to congratulate you on the achievements the team has reached over the last year, but most importantly for the sacrifice and the passion with which you guys have put into representing the country. We do not take you for granted. The job is good, and we hope that all sector players and all interventions align themselves to ensuring that we do better and become the sporting icons that we must be, not only on the continent, but indeed across the globe. So, thank you, Mr. Bagom.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with Mr. Jakol. Take us through what is no doubt a very heavy maze when it comes to the National Council for Sports. The latest development is the request by the Permanent Secretary, the Minister of Finance, that Mr. Ogwell be interdicted or sacked, for that matter. The request is clear. There is nothing. He says he's ineligible to hold that office. He has the reasons, but Mr. Ogwell has been the eye of the storm for a long time. Corruption allegations, maladministration accusations. He has fought them, countered some, but you guys are in the thick of it. What should we understand better?
Thank you very much. Maybe we can start from what you've mentioned. He has been in the eye of a storm. Last year, there was a parliamentary probe over the running of the National Council of Sports. And a very interesting report was published by Parliament, even released, quite damning as far as I'm concerned. And interesting things came out, interesting leanings came out of it. What majorly caught my attention was, and speaks volumes about the running of sport in this country, and perhaps the laissez-faire manner in which sports is run in this country, which in the long run affects people like Ivan Magomo, who have invested their time, skill, talent into the sport and cannot be able to perhaps earn from their talents as they should have. Now, first and foremost, there were interesting things concerning, one, corporate governance of the National Council of Sports. The new Sports Act, the National Council of Sports is given a lot of power. It is the overseer of sport, the regulator, the implementer of government sports policy and everything concerning sports. But something came out. Of course, there have been allegations around Madame Babiria and netball, but also UBF, where Mr. Munabi belongs, also made interesting allegations that they had been asked also, Mr. Ogwell, then to account for more than they received. And that came out. There was even an Auditor General's report to that effect. Interestingly, as far as that is concerned, as far as corporate governance is concerned, also other interesting things came out. That many of these people who are at the helm of running the sport at NCS were perhaps lacking in terms of competence and qualifications, and others were even running on a voluntary basis, did not have offices for that matter. If you're running a multi-billion-dollar industry that is now 3% of global GDP like sports, and you're running it in that casual laissez-faire manner, that becomes a problem. Beyond that, there were a number of briefcase federations, all kinds of federations, which did not have work plans, which never used to account for money, but somehow, in that report again, National Council of Sports kept on giving them money, despite all of that. So it is perhaps against that background that now the permanent Secretary Minister of Finance writes and says, you failed to account properly, you're ineligible. But what stands out is the fact that there has been this report for a very long time. Here is government's third arm of government, Parliament, making recommendations. And no one has acted upon it. IGG has not come out. Of course, IGG claimed also that they found some gaps as far as accountability is concerned, but no one has acted upon it. There's been no prosecution and etc. And for me, that speaks volumes in and of itself. If indeed Mr. Ogwell is innocent, then let him appear in court and defend himself and put up a case. But if all of his allegations have been there for a very long time and no one has acted upon them, then it becomes a problem. Of course, Permanent Secretary's report, the NCS probe at Parliament, in and of themselves not saying that he's guilty, but perhaps are saying there are questions here that must be answered. And if they're not answered, then we are damned as far as sports is concerned. Then we shall continue having this, what Mr. Kagwanjala said, winning by accident on Twitter the other day, the likes of Cheptegei and Peruth Chemta yesterday, other than having a deliberate effort or a concerted effort towards us. And we have the potential. We have the potential, no doubt, to win a lot more medals than we do. Okay. So for me, I want to give that background. But all of this also is very interesting. And you brought it up. Here is a Ministry of Finance, or a PSST, that has been in charge of appointing permanent secretaries. But here is an act of Parliament saying that this particular accounting officer, as far as NCS is concerned, is appointed by the board of NCS. So, and indeed, perhaps legally there could be a question there as far as the PSST's powers are when it comes to asking Mr. Ogwell to step aside, etc. Because in law, there's something called the lex specialis principle, where if where two matters conflict on a particular subject, the particular law or the special law, and this particular aspect is the National Sports Act that handles sports, takes precedence over the general law. But also someone would also argue that NCS is, because, and I'll have to address myself further to the law, the accounting officers that the PSST has been appointed are in ministries. Is NCS a ministry. It's not perhaps a ministry.
Isn't.
So those are legal questions that perhaps would be answered, and maybe by Mr. Ogwell's lawyers at a particular point. I don't know if I've said enough, but at this point, I think...
No, we have no doubt what is sufficient to help us understand what. But you said Mr. Mnabi is privy to some of the allegations, accusations against Mr. Ogwell by virtue of your position in UBF. If you don't mind, what is it that you have against Mr. Ogwell?
I will not have anything against Mr. Ogwell. First, to make the light clear.
That's right.
But...
Or maybe I should have said, what does UBF have against?
And still I wouldn't answer that thing rightly, because I don't speak for UBF, though I provide legal support where necessary. I provided previously. I'll say also that I'll make that clear too. But one, when we just came into the Federation, that was around 2018, one of the first letters that we received from National Council of Sports was a letter requesting for a corporate governance structure. They required that you have proper accounting systems, that you have an accountant in place, you have an office, which letter I think went out to every federation. Surprisingly, by then I think one of the most fulfilling federations was FUFA. At UBF, a structure was set up, which still runs. And on that letter, there was also a request that you provide, among others, your work plan for the year, your budget and calendar of activities for the year. And then it was also made clear that National Council of Sports would be funding activities for the federations on an activity basis. You have an activity like, say, like we have national open boxing competition. You would provide a budget for that, and National Council of Sports would would fund that. So the question of where there is no evidence, maybe to my brother Ivan, where there has been no clear evidence of National Council requesting for a kickback, and we have had that in the news, maybe would also give it a benefit of doubt. Yes, we had the UNF who came out. They even had a letters that were conflicting, and their issue was handled. But still, accountability issues were still lacking. Previously, before the parliamentary intervention, there was a report by the Auditor General. Actually, we found an investigation by the IGG into UBF on the misuse of funds from National Council of Sports, which we had to answer to. Surprisingly, the new leadership was also had to answer questions about previous accountability issues on monies from National Council of Sports. But fast forward, like he has said, there was an investigation by Parliament, an inquiry into the operations of National Council of Sports, which seemed to implicate, though did not give us any outstanding result of what should be done thereafter. Then, like the discussion is here, we move forward, and here is the PSST saying that the General Secretary of National Council of Sports should step aside. To me, it is a question of legality and morals. Integrity, actually. One, the PSST himself, I think October last year, he received a letter that directed him to reinstate an accounting officer who we all know right now is in Luzira. And he did that. Now he comes and relies on a report by IGG and Parliament to say that the General Secretary of National Council of Sports is ineligible. But like Ivan has also said, Section 17 of the Act, National Council of Sports, also makes this body independent. And we all know the general principles of sports law. Sport is an autonomous entity. So, like I have said, we are in two lines of integrity and legality. Maybe that's what I would chip in.
Okay, integrity and legality, but I see money as the most. I think it comes out pretty much as the cause of all the conflict, yet it's not addressed as a problem on its own. We look at integrity, we look at legality of aspects, yet when you look into the whole thing, there is money, who holds what, who accounts for it, and how does he decide who gets what. I was particularly amazed one day when I saw the list of federations that were going to get money after it had been allocated to NCS within the budget. And we had fencing. I don't know the dynamics for fencing in this country, but at that point it had more funding, budget allocation than sports, some other sports that I actually know should have a lot more money. And I didn't have at that time the leverage to ask the question, but now I hope you can give us some bit of a perspective. But allow me co-opt in Mr. Magomu. I want to speak to the rugby man, you know, let's first put the lawyer aside. In the world of rugby, you are under the National Council for Sports, and these issues have been coming up time and again. If you don't mind, take us through what your pain points are when it comes to rugby and the relationship with the National Council for Sports.
Thank you very much. Rugby under the NCS, they're on good working terms.
Oh, lovely.
Yes, rugby has been able to prosper. We've been able to do well. And because of performance, we've been able to attract funding from government that has increased over the years. Yeah, but the issue here should be, now, let me speak as an athlete. The issue is the athlete's welfare.
Yeah.
Yes. You have lots of money being allocated, and you know, you get to find that this money does not trickle down to the athletes. And why doesn't it trickle down to the athletes? We've heard of rumors of, in case you're given a certain or allocated a certain amount of money from the government, you need to have kickbacks. So you have to find a way of balancing the monies to the kickbacks. Now, all these issues make sure that we, the athletes, who actually bring pride and glory to the country, are left with crumbs. The NCS provides for an athlete's representative, who is Mr. Kiprotich, a gold medalist. But he's more of a ceremonial person. I've never seen him come out to address athletes' issues. The athletes are in Paris. I don't know whether he's with the athletes there to represent athletes' issues. Other than that, we see the board guys. They're the ones actually enjoying, you know. So the real
Have
question
they also
is,
assumed his role?
yeah, he's appointed. He's appointed by the minister.
Have you engaged him?
Have I engaged him?
On why he's not visible? Because ideally, one thing I would do if I have a representative somewhere is to get to them and ask what is happening before I get to those who should pretend over him.
Where do you find him? That's the question. Where do we find our representative?
All right, so we're going to urge Mr. Kiprotich,
Yes.
as a representative, wherever you are, I think you should become more visible, more approachable is the wrong word. I don't think he's an unapproachable man, but I think there is a bit of there's a lack. There's somewhere that something must happen. But please just finalize that submission.
Yes. Now the whole issue, of course, having Mr. Ogwell under the limelight over the years, like Ivan said, he's been coming. You know, he's been making news for allegations into, you know, corruption and all this. It happened with the Boxing Federation, and when the boxing president came out to speak about it, a few weeks later, he was sent to Luzira. It happened with the netball. when Sarah Babile came out and was speaking about the injustices, she also ended up in Lozera. So what are we trying to say? Are these people too powerful to be handled? If the minister, if the PSS writes to you and tells you this is the report that has come from the internal auditors, and then you have the chairman, and mind you, it is the board that appoints the accounting secretary, who is the accounting officer. And now the chairman sitting down and coming up with a report or reply to the minister's letter raises very many questions. Yes.
Okay, I think it's just about time that we go for a break, but when we return, this conversation will continue. I know you're itching to talk about it, but no doubt I will begin with you. When we return, you're watching Morning at NTV, and it's the Kickstarter. We are trying to understand what is the tension, the misunderstandings, the allegations all about that see the National Council of Sports consistently in the news for things including misallocation of funds, theft, and apparently the administration of kickbacks. Chris Higenyi doesn't know what goes on when it comes to kickback regimes, but apparently things are big and they're causing a lot of tension. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us. It's the Kickstarter, and we are talking accountability in sports, particularly at the eye of the storm that is the National Council for Sports, and of course the latest development being the request by the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, who is also the Secretary to the Treasury, Ramadan Gobi, asking that Mr. Ogwell, who is at the helm at the National Council for Sports, be relieved over his duties. The legality of that particular request is also under question. It's the board that must decide whether Mr. Ogwell goes or not, and not the Permanent Secretary. However, in a country where certain things happen in a certain way, if Mr. Ogwell goes on account of a request by the Permanent Secretary, then that could also open up a whole new wave of developments. But allow me go to Mr. Philip Mnabi and ask the question about demand and accountability. Allow me understand something here. National Council of Sports superintends over a litany of federations. It is supposed to ask these federations for accountability of funds disbursed. What I suspect, for example, is that some federations do submit accountability satisfactorily, some not. For those that don't, maybe they have their own reasons. Is there a vendetta from the federations that don't submit accountability towards Mr. Ogwell for demanding for that accountability? But on the other hand, does Mr. Ogwell, as some stories have been heard and allegations flying around, does he meddle in the accountability process of some federations and not others? Why does he do that? Is it on account of the fact that the money is more in one organization or federation than the other? And I don't know even how to put it, but I hope I've been clear enough.
Yeah, I think what we need to make clear is why these allegations are coming up, and how do we categorize them. In some of the allegations, Mr. Ogwell is saying, we gave you money, account for it. We need accountability for the money that we gave you.
He's insisting.
He's insisting. As an accounting officer.
That is right.
You get it. This federation, because of their failure to account, they are saying, you know what? You are witch hunting us. Let us be clear. Let us be clear. Let us be clear. Ivan, yes. There has been a list of compliant federations to the act that was published about a month ago. You would ask yourself right now, why many of the federations are non-compliant? Part of the issue is accountability.
Great question, yeah.
We all know there are federations that have no offices. Yes. We all know there are federations.
You spoke about the briefcase organization federations, yeah.
We all know there are those federations. Now, how do you get accountability from those people? Some federations have been allocated money on account of an activity. We have a trip. This is what we are going to do. Money is allocated to them. failure to account for the money received turns into a tug of war between them and the federation. That should also be made clear. But where federations have made account for their money, for instance, the issue about UBF, on one side saying, Oguel gave us money and demanded for a kickback. As I hear the allegations, it would require accounts. For the time I have been with UBF, they have always provided accountability. Until we were hit with the issue of the parliamentary investigation. And a receipt of 3 million had accountability issues. And that was made clear. The UBF president had to go in prison for that. He stood to account for his federation.
That's right.
If it means going in, let me go in. You get it? He stood to account for his federation. Now, further to that, because UBF complies with the accountability requirements from National Council of Sports, they have been funded. They have been funded. You get it? Now, the other issue that is arising also is the issue of why one federation has too much money and another has too
very little money.
Exactly. I would believe it goes back to the demand for accountability from these federations. For instance, if you have not submitted your annual budget and annual calendar of activities, I think National Council of Sports can allocate a sum to your federation. In the event
that there is an
activity you request for that money and it will be disbursed. The issue we are having is that when we come out in the open, everyone is saying National Council of Sports is feeding on our money. Like my brother here is saying, let us understand the Sports Act or the law in sports. National Council of Sports' primary duty and mandate is sports development, grassroots sports development, not athletics welfare.
Who is the grassroots?
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. Listen, listen, Mago.
Let him submit.
Mago, listen,
I'll
listen,
pose that question.
Listen. When about 2 years ago, we were doing the UOC strategic development plan. This issue came up.
UOC being the Uganda
Olympic Committee. This issue came up. Many of the athletes who have held glory for this country are out there drunk and languishing in poverty. So the issue of welfare came up. UOC was clear. If you're rising in your sports career, issues like financial literacy and management are yours. You get it? When you get to glory and you slide back for poor management of your resources, National Council of Sports shouldn't be blamed. As an athlete, it shouldn't be blamed. The role of National Council is capacity development at the grassroots. We have a sport which is played countrywide. It needs financing. It needs stadia. It needs coaches. You get it? It needs trainings. When the team comes up, national team, National Council of Sports will take responsibility. If an athlete gets money, for instance, there's a stipend when you win gold, you're given some money like 5 million, I think. The reward scheme. You get it? Athletes are even benefiting from it. Some athletes. Yes, it has been there previously.
Maybe.
No, it has been there.
When the president
It would be best, for example, if we have evidence of a person who has sought to receive that stipend but hasn't. Is there one?
Maybe that.
I have very many friends from the Commonwealth Games that happened in 2018.
They didn't receive it.
They received for a few months, then after that, up to now.
I can show you, for example, our cricket team, the T20 was at the World Cup recently. Because, of course, maybe because cricket doesn't have that much of a following, or even the powers that be, perhaps, be not that interested in cricket. They didn't have a state house dinner or something like that. So it's usually the athletes, guys at the Olympics or wherever, that usually, and usually just, let's be honest, just patronage from the president, or
So who should we point the finger?
No, the act refers to it, but maybe they've said they're going to put it in regulations. The question
who should I point the finger at right now when it comes to the availability of this information.
Let me first
athletes
answer that.
across the country.
You know, when it says the primary role of the NCS, I think it's wrong, Mr. Mandari, because the Act has many roles of NCS. But when NCS is supposed to regulate and organize sports federations, it also means if it fails to carry out that role, then the athlete at the downstream will not be able to benefit. If an athlete comes and says, you take an example of Magome, he may not like this, but my image rights are being taken.
Oh, he will take this.
NCS should crack the whip and say, properly ensure there's a trickle down from sponsorship money to the athlete. So if NCS does not do it, I have a matter in court. I complained to NCS many times. Many times. Of course, I knew that they were going to do nothing, but I needed to explore, to show court I've explored internal dispute resolution mechanisms. I tried invoking the arbitration clause under their constitution. They didn't respect it. I went to NCS. They did nothing. So now we're in court. So
how long have you been in court?
Well, it's now a year. It's now a year. The hearing is coming up next month. But it is because of NCS's failure to crack the whip. So by failing to organize and regulate and properly put these guys in place, inevitably, in the long run, it affects the person down here. Who's the real star that I tuned into? I go and watch rugby, not because I love Uganda Rugby Union, it's because I want to watch Ivan Magum. My attachment is to the athlete.
If it goes down to the athlete, if Magum eventually fails to have proper financial controls, why would he blame?
No, I do appreciate what you say, that, for example, somebody getting drunk is not,
because welfare is
really not
issue.
down to any other person except the holder or the person themselves. They fail to manage. Sometimes even becoming poor after a stellar performance, you've earned some money and then you fall on hard times. Sometimes it's down to the person themselves. The fact that you have become destitute should not be something that, but there must be mechanisms to help such persons to recover as a deliberate effort by the NCS or the government for that matter. But you spoke
why are we skipping the federations under which they fall?
let me ask a question.
No, by the way,
why are we skipping the federations
support his
under
argument,
which they fall?
support his argument, many of these federations, except FUFA, which has a bit of organization, but of course even it has its problems. They are shams. Again.
He spoke about the fact that some federations ask for funding, but they don't have offices. And my question is, how can the National Council for Sports have federations that don't even have offices?
It should be able to crack the whip.
But
well, that's another point. Let me just answer that now. There's also a dilemma, and there's even controversy about the existence of a body like National Council of Sports. You know, sports for a very long time has claimed to be private, and that's why his autonomy argument comes in. Because originally they derived their existence for their international governing bodies. If I'm FUFA, I say FIFA is all that governs. So there is a dual regulation, and many times when asked questions by NCS, they run and say, but we're actually independent. If anything, we are. But the only problem is, this is government money. You must account for money from the consolidated fund. So, but the only thing is, whenever the NCS tries to come in and organize, and by the way, there have been attempts, Mr. Ogwell is not entirely, even he has tried in some instances, and they will come back and say, but no way, and then they run to the whole government intervention, we shall get banned, what
is the relationship?
So it's a bit of that, and that's all the controversy around this whole thing of sport is, but again, about his autonomy argument. Sports has moved on, and this is international sports law now, and this is the subject now. It is no longer autonomy absolute. It is now conditional autonomy. Conditional meaning, for as long as you subscribe to rule of law, proper governance, then you can claim to be autonomous. But as long as you're not subscribing to that, we're going to come and ask questions.
So how best does the latest act address some of these concerns? Have the legislators been informed enough
now, the act,
in order to craft a law or an act that attends to all these aspects?
The act is actually tame on that. It even is somewhere is as if contradicting itself. That NCS shall come and regulate, but will also recognize the autonomous nature of these sports federations. So that already is a controversy. If you're going to regulate, come outrightly and say, we're going to regulate. You said they're vetting new CSs in Kenya. Mukomen, who's a new sports CS, said, I do not care. I'm going to come for these guys. I don't want to hear excuses of Sijui, we are governed by international federations, we autonomous government, they will ban us. I'm going to ask for accountability even when it comes to international money that you're getting from FIFA, from FIBA and wherever. Because sports is not just a private entity, it's the public good.
Yeah.
I'm invested emotionally in whether Ivan Magobu is okay because I want him to score for me a try and bring me glory.
Just see what happened on a Friday evening.
Exactly.
As Skepticism.
Exactly. Just yesterday, for example,
was up and celebrating.
just imagine, yesterday we all felt very bad when Perth lost that goal.
You know?
The emotional investment that we have in our sports people is amazing because the glory, it's a major distraction from all these problems of the world. In the evening when I'm watching a great sportsman and they're bringing a lot of happiness to me. So that argument, sports people have run away with it for a long time, but increasing, and that's why governments are now regulating and saying we now want national sports acts. We can no longer just look on and say that you guys are independent. So the independence argument is slowly being, and for example, you saw the FBI came for Sepp Blatter. Yes.
So ideally, this particular argument vindicates the actions of the permanent secretary in asking that Mr. Oguel be relieved of his duties. Is it a vindication? You seem to be uncomfortable with that. Because we must understand, maybe government is attendant to the aspects that Ivan Ojakol talks about, and it's seeing the law as an impediment.
You see, I come from a point of view of, yes, these reports were there that he bases on. But then, these reports had no action points. Yes, he's implicated. For instance, Oguel would say the missing gaps in the accountability are attributed to these federations, which are not accounting for the monies that we give them. You get it? But then there is a report which says, okay, this amount of money is missing or is mismanaged, but we don't know what is next. You get it? Now, save if there was maybe criminal implication or real liability that Oguel account for this money or bring it back, we would say, okay. You get it? But I find his I would say he's witch hunting. That's what I would say.
He's being witch hunting.
The PSST is witch hunting Oguel. Actually, he's
maybe you might be right. You might be right. Why am I saying this? If all these allegations and accusations have flown about, but somehow Oguel is not in jail, meaning no one can actually bring concrete evidence incriminating Mr. Oguel.
Exactly.
So that comes down to a leadership vacuum and the inability of Oguel and the council to whip these other federations, most of which I've just understood don't even exist.
But also something critical. His letter comes at a point. We should also understand that I think I've not seen an advert, but I know the former legal officer left. NCS has no legal officer.
Shadia is over there.
Shadia left. She's in insurance. You get it?
Okay.
We have no opinion from the Attorney General. You get it? But here is a letter.
I found it interesting also, by the way.
The Attorney General has not interested himself in these matters. You'll be telling us exactly, I'll be seeking to know exactly how and why the Attorney General must be interested if other offices, including the Permanent Secretary, are taking care of matters. But that is after we go for another break. It's bottom of the hour, over 8, and you're watching Morning at NTV. It's the Kickstarter specifically. When we return, some questions regarding why certain officials now think they should take the bull by the horns and whether they actually should. We shall be addressing that. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us. Let's continue with the discussion. Accountability in sports, and of course the National Council for Sports finds itself in a spot of bother, particularly Mr. Oguel, who superintends matters over there. But as we heard in the discussion before we went into the break, maybe the inability of those who accuse Mr. Oguel of providing sufficient evidence on kickbacks, corruption, a lack of accountability on his own as the honcho, maybe they should step up and be able to provide these pieces of evidence for the nation and any other stakeholder to make a better decision. But what we do know is that he has been labeled and declared ineligible for the job by the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance. Ivan Ojakol will be helping us shortly on exactly what this means. I was earlier of the view that the permanent secretary cannot seek the interdiction, the sacking, and the relief of duty of any officer who is not under a ministry, but I've been informed that there must be some clauses within the law that allow him for that. The clarity will be provided, but allow me go to Mr. Magomu. Ivan, the captain of the rugby Cranes and a star athlete. There are things that are happening with athletes that we need to find out. Yes. If I want to be a boxer, if I want to be a track and field guy, what are the things, what structure is available that can help me understand if I win bronze, silver or gold at any one games, this is what will come to me and for how long? Because you spoke about the fact that money has been disbursed, but for a few months, and then after that, no one gets the money. Who do you report to? Who do you go to? And how much is this money? What's the structure?
Thank you very much. The Act, the NSA, the Sports Act, provides for a reward scheme for top-performing athletes. Of course, you saw Cheptegei winning, and he was rewarded with 100 million shillings. Yesterday, Peru, 50 million.
You are stayed clear of that money?
Clear of the money. That is really good, but it shouldn't only happen once in a lifetime. You know, it should trickle down really to the federations themselves. What are athletes supposed to do? They're supposed to be given contracts. They need to know that if I take part in a sport, this is the contract I'm supposed to sign. This is the remuneration I'm supposed to get for a certain period of time. Not just hearsay. With the contracts, they'll be protected. They will know I'll be putting in the hard work while getting what I deserve, other than being exploited. So yeah, the Act provides for the reward scheme, but all this now needs to be tuned to the athlete's representative. He should be leading our cause at NCS. He should be actually coming out and saying, you know what, as an Olympic gold medalist, this is the benefit I got from the government. It has been stated in the Act, so why not enforce it down to the federations? You get? Or you sign a contract, you enter into a contract with the NCS for a certain period of time, you know, you're a top-performing athlete, and you're rewarded, other than just being given a one-off or being promised, minus signing, and once you get the one-off, everyone goes their own.
Actually, you need this understanding to be between the athlete and the National Council of Sports, and not the athlete and the federation.
Yes.
Because the federation might fail, might actually get that money.
Yes, and it doesn't give the athlete. So where do I run to? I run to the federation, they'll take me around circles. The last resort I have to run to the representative up.
It's unfortunate I can't access Mr. Kiprotich, but I'll have to find him
here
after
sometime.
this. I think he's in Paris.
I haven't seen him anywhere. Is he in Paris, Ivan? I don't know. I have not seen him anywhere. I'm only seeing the guys.
Ivan here. Ivan here. Yes. Himself previously written an article on that welfare scheme. A very good piece. And he praises it. Full-heartedly. You get it? But I think what is missing is the regulation bit, if I would be right. Yes. Because this scheme, we should understand that it has not started today.
Yes. No.
It's
been on for a while.
It's been on for a while. It was actually tabled in Parliament after we had some Paralympian who got victory. I don't remember the name, but it started some time back. Jacob Olanya's time. So what needs to be put clear now is the regulations, and precisely how the money goes to the athlete
himself. From to
the
athlete's account.
The structure could be through NCS.
Yes,
but you can have a number that put in your account, and money goes to you. But also the federation has a duty now: financial literacy and management.
Ensuring that these athletes are taken through that. It's very important. How you use your money is not up to us. It's up to you.
But we don't want to be as football after 1 year or boxing
unable to.
You get it, getting feedback that you see this player is now drunk or...
The drunkard,
Yeah.
you find he wasted. They ain't really...
Because it's happening. So many
athletes frustrated.
Yeah. Okay, that's a very emotional one, and of course I've seen it firsthand. But there's a question I needed clarity on. I was accusing the permanent secretary unfairly. I've just understood that he actually can. But again, I insist: can he ask somebody that somebody is relieved of their duty, or he can express concern about the issues at hand?
Okay. First of all, I think earlier made the mistake and said it was not the ministries, but usually ministries, government departments and agencies. Yeah, so he, of course, under the PFM Act, Public Finance Management Act, he's responsible for appointing them, the so-called accounting officers. Yes. And the National Sports Act close refers to the PFM Act. Yes. And in legislative drafting, when an act close refers to another one, it means that act should be read together with the other one. But again, first of all, I think he has done the right thing. He has written the right people who are supposed to deal with the issue, who's the chairperson of the council, and it's the council to determine whether or not Mr. Ogwell is fit. Whether or not Mr. Ambrose Tashobea's response is the right one. He seems to be running away from it and sending the responsibility elsewhere. But also, the other controversy now becomes...
According to Article 39 of the National Sports Act 2023, which governs the structure of the National Council of Sports, the General Secretary is appointed by the Council's board and serves as the accounting officer of the Council. In response to Gobi's request, the chairperson of the NCAs, Ambrose Tashobea, in a letter dated June 30th, asked the Finance Ministry to furnish the board with more information on this matter. There was a response from the ministry, of course, being the current the dispensation that sees the accounting officer strictly in line of the whip of the ministry. Now, more information is what I do not know. What more information does Mr. Tashobea want from the ministry on Mr. Ogwell?
And perhaps,
do you have an idea?
And perhaps that's the discussion we were having earlier. Maybe there's not enough evidence, so we need so we need evidence.
He could have expressed concern, as opposed to requesting to relinquish this man of his duties. He could have expressed concern. There is concern of accountability issues relying on these previous reports.
That's right.
You get it?
He attaches them.
He attaches them. You get it? And 6.
In other words, he makes the case for relieving this guy of his duty, not directing that he's actually relieved of his duty.
But also in the response, let us also understand. In the response I saw, they proposed a name for a particular vote. But under the Act, Section 40, I think, there are various roles, like overseeing the day-to-day running of the federation. There are other roles and functions of the General Secretary. Now, if you are asking someone to step aside for a particular vote, then where are you leaving the other duties? That's why, in a layman's language, I would sit there and say this is a witch hunt.
But again, I want to nullify that assertion, because this is a guy who has been implicated by the Auditor General. The Auditor General has the mandate to audit, look through what is...
And prosecute.
You know? Now that the Auditor General recommends that action be taken, I do not know who should we be going for not acting on the Auditor General's report. Is it the Ministry of Education?
Auditor General has power to prosecute. Yes.
So
we can visit the Act.
The Auditor General has has the mandate to trigger a prosecution, but hasn't. Why?
I don't know why.
Maybe
there is no evidence.
What is happening?
Because ideally there should be a complaint. Go and file a complaint. Exactly. The police, DPP takes it on or something. So maybe they have not complained and they have stopped at appearing in Parliament and publishing reports. Maybe.
Because such scenarios that don't add up make my job very difficult as a moderator. You know? So how do what's the way forward now in light of the latest development? Is it sufficient for the Mr. Ogwell to vacate on account of the permanent secretary asking?
No, it is not, because until the appropriate body that is supposed to actually relieve him of his duties, which is the council, the board of the council, acts, then...
But where is the Minister for Education and Sports?
And maybe that is where my issue comes in. We are in a lacuna of National Council doesn't have a legal representative, internal legal person.
How do we know that?
They don't have a secretary, a legal...
They don't have an assistant?
No, I speak that with authority. The person in charge of legal is away. She left. You get it?
So there is...
maybe what would happen, maybe what would happen, maybe what would happen.
lawyers.
No, maybe what would happen. Yeah, they would get external lawyers. And maybe what would happen. Now, this is where, and also I thank the revolution on sports law. This is where bodies like Uganda Law Society chip in. You get it? To provide an opinion. We have a sports law cluster. Get an opinion. Get the Attorney General's opinion. You get it? And let's see how this can be sorted. This dilemma can be sorted.
Now,
otherwise, you're leaving a very huge gap. Because now what is going to happen, federations are going to start coming up and saying, you see now, for us, we have been receiving little money.
Yeah, actually, the problem, they were asking for money to be sent directly to them. But of course, that's dangerous.
to add on to that,
Interesting.
you asked about the Minister of Education.
Yeah, where is she?
Now,
I won't even ask where is the ministry. Where is the minister?
Is the minister now? The Act provides for the board. The sports minister appoints 7 members to the
board.
He then goes ahead to appoint the chairperson. It is the board that goes ahead and appoints the Secretary General.
In other words, the board is the minister's outpost.
Now, the direct channel should not be, actually the name of the First Lady should not be appearing anywhere. Direct.
The name of the Minister for Education.
State for Sports.
Don't confuse the two.
There's the Minister of State for Sports and Minister of
Sports and Education.
But you see,
yes. So let me finish. Now,
all right.
The Minister of State for Sport is the one who appoints the 7 members to the board.
Okay.
He appoints the chairperson, and the board goes ahead to appoint the Secretary General, who is the accounting officer. So, actually, that letter should have been addressed from the PS, should have been addressed. Yes, it was addressed to the NCS, to the chairman. The chairman should have written to the sports minister about the same, and not confuse the sports minister with. Does it make sense?
Bigger minister.
Yes, with the bigger minister. They should keep the name of the bigger minister out of the picture.
That is perception level.
No.
The state minister acts in line with the minister's
mandates. Before you go to the minister, you go through
the state minister.
Then you can arrive to the
the state minister hasn't been notified of anything, or let me, for example, say the state minister is sleeping on the job, where is the minister?
You leave that to maybe Ojakol to can expound on that.
Ojakol,
yes.
Let's, as we enter the final bend of this discussion, one thing I've realized, and this is something that cuts across most of our sectors in the country, is that there is an extra hand somewhere, and the powers that be are not known. Just like somebody will say, I got a call from above. No one has really ever been able to figure out who above is. But above is powerful. Are we seeing above in these things?
No, inevitably, sports is just a microcosm of our society. When there is no proper rule of law in a society, it means even sports will suffer.
Yes.
So you cannot divorce the running of our sports from what goes on in a country like ours. Inevitably, trust me, if things were proper, we wouldn't have some people in charge of some things in this country, including NCS. Yeah, so we can't run away from that. Yeah.
All right, time is up. Let me ask Ivan, the man who is in the. I want you to take us through what your take is on what's happening in the Olympics, Uganda's ability to do what we've been able to do, get some gold, but most importantly, also take us through what we have to pay attention to in the world of rugby, what's cooking. I know there's a lot of success stories there. Please do share with us. I will take this opportunity to ensure that you actually amplify some of them.
First of all, I would like to thank all the athletes taking part in the Olympics, representing the country. Champion or not, you've done us proud. You work over years to have that shot at the Olympics. Would like to thank, of course, NCS, Government of Uganda, for seeing it that it happens, and congratulate them on that. Rugby, we just got out of a tournament, amazing tournament. We played at home. It was for the qualification 2027 World Cup qualification. It was a tournament for the World Cup qualifiers, which we stayed in. We host that again next year. Yeah, but as Uganda, we are talented, gifted naturally.
That's
sportsmen, right. Gifted. What needs to happen is to actually invest in the core product itself, which is the athlete. You see, we don't put in much, but we are still able to deliver. How about if we took the leap of faith and actually gave the athletes what they deserve? What would happen? Amazing things. I'm not here to critique anyone, but all I can say is there's room for improvement as regards to welfare of athletes, and the sooner our athletes realize that they're the core product, the better it will be for us.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Munabi, your last words?
Maybe what is happening should also direct us towards the general issues around the country. We have an issue of corruption. Now, if Mr. Ogwell is implicated and such a letter comes out, it is a question of him looking into himself and standing to say, in the midst of all these allegations, do I step aside for the good of the sport? Or do I maintain my legal standing as a person who was appointed to do my work?
That's right.
Yeah. So it's I think clarity will come out, and eventually the sportsman will benefit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Ivan Ejako.
Yeah, inevitably, at least for now, Mr. Ogwell is innocent till proven guilty. And perhaps there's a reason why no one has ever prosecuted him of anything. Maybe, like Mr. Munabi has said, it could be witch hunting. It could be people who are jealous of him or something like that. But like Mr. Munabi has said, if we developed a culture of standing aside as investigations go on in our country, exactly, it becomes a moral issue. You're like, okay, but all of these allegations, why don't I? Please bring them on. Let me defend myself, and then we'll. But also, interestingly, in that parliamentary probe, in as much as there are so many damning revelations about the running of NCS, it also came out that actually many of these guys were actually, like Mr. Nabia said, witch hunting and also running from accountability. So it is not just about Mr. Ogwell, but for me, again, it's just the wider running of sport. The fact that we still take it quite casually in this country, the fact that we have a Ministry of Sport and Education together. We should have an independent Ministry of Sport, as perhaps that's why we have some of these problems, because there's no proper, maybe, oversight of, cracking the whip and etc. So yeah, so we hopefully one day these matters get their day in court so that we can determine the finality, other than throwing around allegations against Mr. Ogwell. Yeah, thank you very much.
Ivan Ejako, Philip Munabi, and Ivan Magomo, many thanks for the submissions. Your perspectives on these matters offers us a very good picture of exactly what is happening, but most importantly, how the country must come together in dealing with the greater spectre of corruption, mismanagement of public funds, but also to condition ourselves in addressing what is no doubt a very disturbing deficit of leadership integrity and trust in public office. That will go a long way in shaping the kind of economic, social transformation that we seek as a nation. Here on Morning at NTV, we do amplify these and other matters, and we do hope that our daily effort will go a long way in putting that trajectory straight. I'm Chris Higenyi on behalf of my colleagues out there who ensure that these 2.5 hours are as exhaustive as they are. Many thanks. It's been a pleasure. I'll see you tomorrow. Have yourselves a lovely day.